I don't want to worry about the points here. I'm just going to go Kansas on the money line. But there are a lot of people loving Kansas in this game. I am one of them. But you have to remember that Illinois is a lot better than what they showed last weekend against Toledo. When I first looked at this game, I'm like, oh, this is a lock. But again, Illinois did not play that well against Toledo, so we have to keep that in mind. I think the defense is going to be better for the Illini this week, which is going to result in a closer game, but I still like Kansas to come out on top here. Jalen Daniels didn't play last week because of back tightness. Again, as you said, it was a cupcake game. I think he's going to be in the lineup. He's expected to play. And even if he doesn't, I still like Jason Bean. I feel very comfortable with him. He's played a lot of football as backup quarterback, but Daniels is the better playmaker in this spot, and I would rather have him on the field here. In the past, Illinois could run the football and control clock. That's not their type of team this year. They're going to have to score to beat Kansas. And especially if last week's defense shows up for them, they're really going to have to score. I think the Jayhawks get some early momentum with some points here, get a spark from Daniels being in the lineup, and find a way to win this football game. If they get up early, I just don't see the Illini staying with them long term here because they don't have the offense to keep up with Jalen Daniels in this spot. So I think it's going to be close. I think it come down to the fourth quarter, and the Illini might make a second half push here. I don't want to worry about points. As I said, I'm just going to play the money line for a very fair price of minus 150. No, I can't bet against Colorado here. This is one of the most public bets I think we've ever seen in college football. And I'm still here for it. The line's 2.5 or 3. It doesn't make a lot of sense on a surface level because you would think Colorado should be favored by a touchdown in the spot after what they did last week. But when you separate yourself from it, it doesn't feel like as much of a trap as you might think looking at it right on the piece of paper here. When you look at Colorado, they were an 8.5-point underdog against Nebraska prior to last week's game against TCU. After that game, they shifted to eventually being a favorite here. And we've only seen one game from them, so we can't really buy into the hype too much, and bookmakers can't either. We can't list them as a touchdown favorite in this spot. We haven't seen enough from Coach Prime here. So even though Colorado is only favored by 2.5 points, and people like this is the block of the century per se, it makes sense. The line is set the right way just because we haven't seen a lot of Colorado football. Last week could have been all hype. It could have been real Colorado football. We'll see this week. But this is a game I think they have to win, and I really wanted to bet Nebraska in some capacity. I wanted to get on the Nebraska train just because of how much public money is coming in on Colorado. I don't think they're going to be able to run with the Buffalo in this game. Shedeur Sanders was unfazed by the moment last week on the road against TCU. I think he's going to be just as good this week. He was calm, composed in the pocket. They had 4 receivers over 100 yards. Travis Hunter is him, as Coach Prime would say. So there's a lot going for Colorado, and I think the defense is going to be better, and that's the only thing holding me back about the Buffalo. I don't know how good their defense is going to be. Last weekend, they weren't that good. But Nebraska is also not the same type of offense that we're going to see from like a TCU. So overall, I think Colorado is going to blow Nebraska off the field. I think they're going to be fast, they're efficient, and Nebraska can't run with them long term in this game. So I'm going to lay the points here. I wanted to bet Nebraska. I really did. But when I took a step back, I said this line makes sense, and I'm going to play the Buffalo. Yeah, I don't want to touch anything to do with the total here. I'm just going to play a side, and that's Alabama -7. I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I really don't think Quinn Ewers is that good without a running back like Bijan Robinson to support him. Last season, when he was cooking, it was because Robinson was running the football effectively. They were able to work in play action. And last week, Ewers was good, but he wasn't that efficient with the football, in my opinion, especially if it was against a team like Alabama. The thing we saw from Alabama last week in their cupcake game against Middle Tennessee State was they didn't really get flagged much, and they were very efficient holding on to the football. They didn't turn it over. So that's something you got to look at for Alabama coming this game on a high note. When I look at Quinn Ewers in Texas, I don't think it's going to be enough coming into Tuscaloosa here. Alabama wants to win this game, and there's a lot of people doubting Nick Saban's team. And when you doubt a Nick Saban coach team, bad things are going to happen. This is going to be a statement game in Tuscaloosa. I think Jalen Milroe is ready for the moment. He can run. That adds another dimension that Texas has to defend out of him. He can throw the football. He ran for 48 yards last weekend with 2 touchdowns. So I like Alabama here. I think they're bigger, faster, stronger in the trenches too, and that's another reason to go with them. There's so much point to Alabama, and I know last season Texas would almost beat them. If Quinn Ewers didn't get hurt, they probably do beat them in Austin, but this game's not in Austin. It's in Tuscaloosa with an Alabama team that has something to prove this season after getting left out of the college football playoff a year ago. So this is a statement game, and I think Alabama's going to come out on top and win decisively, especially in the fourth quarter. I'm going to go with UConn plus the points here. Take them on the money line as well. Sprinkle that. These teams are very evenly matched, and I like what UConn did last week against NC State, especially in the trenches. They were able to move the football, running it. Throwing the ball was a little different. They need to open up the aerial passing attack to beat Georgia State. I think they're going to have more success this week than last week against NC State. Joe Fagano was efficient with the football when he was asked to throw it, which wasn't much. It wasn't necessarily great, but he did manage the game well, and that's exactly what UConn needs to do in this spot. Another thing that they need to do is they need to contain quarterback Darren Granger for Georgia State. He had 51 yards rushing last week. When we go back to the game against NC State for UConn, they got eaten up by the quarterback run. So that's something that they need to shut down this week. I think it's going to be a point that they emphasize. And they also need to shut down Marcus Carroll, running back for Georgia State, at 184 yards last week. But I like the Huskies in the trenches. I think they're going to play strong on both sides of the football. And they're only listed as a dog because this game's on the road. I do think they're a slightly better team than Georgia State. They also have a great coach in Jim Moore, and that's going to make all the difference here. So UConn picks up their first win. I've been high on the Huskies all season, and going into the season, I should say. I think they're going to be a 6+ win team based on their schedule, and I like what they did against NC State last week. So if they can bring that same intensity, I think they're going to be in really good shape against Georgia State this week. Yeah, NC State struggled a lot against UConn. If it wasn't for their quarterback, Brennan Armstrong, scrambling, they might have lost that game against UConn. So I like Notre Dame here. Notre Dame has a very good offensive line. They can establish the run game, and they can attack NC State vertically down the field, something that UConn couldn't do. This Notre Dame team's legit. I'm not saying they're going to be legit against a USC, but they are a legit football team. If they can run the ball against NC State, they're going to be just fine and cover this number.